I'm in my zone, I'm in my zone. I'm in my, I'm in my zone.
Hey Matt, I feel like I have to greet you again. Because hey, how are you doing? But we were like chatting here the whole time while the team was setting up. So crazy. I was actually about to tell you this concept of like death of ego, something that I've been undergoing, or I guess embracing, in a sense that like we go through so many like life changes and life transitions, and I guess with every big step comes that I guess transition, of which I only made sense of it like later on, that oh, this thing is actually some sort of death of ego, you know, the idea of like starting over, being nothing to no one, and embracing change.
Yeah, oh, what a start. Jumped right into it. Yeah, it's an amazing thing to happen. I'm no psychologist, but I have experienced something similar. I tend to experience it a few times. I think in your 20s, I've now crossed the line into the 30s this year. So, but yeah, it's I think it's a very common thing to happen, this transition into a new you. So yeah, is that what we're going to chat about?
No, that's not where we're going. We just happened to just like, I guess, segue to that. Oh, it just felt like wrong to not like, it felt like I had to complete the thought before I like pivot into what our chat is going to be.
Today
But
we're talking about the death of
ego.
Thank you for joining us.
That's funny, dude. Thank you so much for making the time to come here and like chat with us. It's been like long in the making. I think I was first introduced to you by Megan Daniels. Must have been a couple of years ago, where she had like did like a short docu piece on you, on yourself, Dara Kanyisa, and I was just like really captivated by the idea of like a Matte Binery existing in Johannesburg and South Africa. It was like so far away from me, but I guess that piece was like such a beautiful window in the work that you do. And I guess the foundation and the atmosphere in your studio that was in Vic Yards, many people don't know that, okay, I think people know that you made in Greenside, and football was actually the first dying passion. So I want to start there. Take me back to Greenside, young boy, football.
Yeah, let's do it. Shout out Greenside. There are a couple of homies from there. Francesco, shout out.
Shout out.
The other ones that have come out of that small green tree covered part of Josie. Yeah, what a place to grow up. I'm a Joburg local boy. Everything I've ever done has been very close by to me. Very lucky to have grown up like that. Yeah, the reason I grew up in Greenside is a crazy story, but my parents were from Orange Grove. That's where they sort of bought one of their first houses in Joburg. And they were moving out of Orange Grove looking for a new place, and they stopped off at the spot in Greenside where I grew up, and which they still live in today. So we're talking, 30 odd years ago. And it was a rainy day, and my dad ran in, my mom stayed in the car, and this woman walked out with her partner, and my dad overheard her saying, as she was walking out the gate, "Oh, that place smells terrible." And my dad immediately knew when he walked in, he was like, "That's burnt pup." And he was like, "I'm going to put an offer into this place. A terrible time to burn your pup, but like, what a great time to put an offer on a place." He put an offer in. My dad is an artist, mom's an interior designer, got this like little house in Greenside, and have lived there their whole lives, and that's the reason I grew up in that spot. And yeah, what a place to grow up. Certainly made me who I am, and gave me access to Joburg in so many cool ways. Yeah, so I went to Greenside Primary School, which is a very, very cool vibe. Both my brothers went there. It was also at the sort of transition of primary schools in South Africa. I think I started 2001, grade 1, which is very easy to check. 2002, grade 2. If I failed, I was in for a problem, because I just used to think it's the year is the grade you're in. Thank you. But yeah, it was an incredibly diverse primary school. I think at one point I was the only white kid in my grade, and that was like rad. It's like living a super interesting sort of post-apartheid South African life, and I loved it. I was very serious as a young kid, very, very serious, like football, sports, anything where there was like a competition. I was like, we have to win, and I'm gonna like freak out if we don't. So there was a competitive streak there. Probably not very well managed by myself. I don't know if my parents knew how to manage it either, but it was interesting. Something I still work on today is like competitive streak. And yeah, it just sort of came out in the best way during sports, and it made me like a really good sports person as a child. And football was the thing, but I also played cricket, and anything that involved like hand-eye coordination. I thought I'm like, I can beat you, let's go.
Wow.
So yeah, big part of me growing up.
Was football a big thing in your house amongst your parents and your brothers? And who were your, like, I guess, heroes at the time in a football capacity?
Man, so as early as I could stand, my brothers would put me in the pala, the goals, and take shots at me. So I grew up hard. I was like, I was Manuel Neuer there at a young age, while these guys, actually Oliver Kahn. Let's take it
Oliver
further.
Kahn.
I was Ali Khan in the front garden. Older brothers, 5 and 8 years older than me, just kicking the ball at me as soon as I could stand. So I had them to teach me everything, fast track me, make me better. I think, I can't really remember, but my brothers played for Wits Juniors before it became Bidvest Wits. Rest in peace. Can't believe PSL lets this stuff happen where we lose a football team with 100 years of history just because, you can sell a status. If anyone can answer why that makes any sense from a business perspective, please do. Write in the comments. Blows my mind because I don't have a football team anymore to support in South Africa. But my brothers played for Wits Juniors, which were the junior team for Wits University, which then became Bidvest Wits when Bidvest bought them. And from a very early age, I'd go watch my brothers play and kick the ball around on the side of the field. And I think, when you're young and you have access to a ball and a field and you're watching your older brothers do something clicks and you just get better than, kids your age. And so, yeah, I think I played like under 6 when I was 5, under 7 when I was 5 or 6. And then slowly like caught up to my age group, and then, under 9, I was playing as an under 9 kid. And played my whole life growing up, and eventually left Wits when I was 19. So that's 13 years, no more, 14 years at a club, which is wild. I don't think I've done anything for that long in my entire life.
Wow.
So that was the start of my football career. I think like who inspired me growing up, David Beckham, 100%. I mean, when I was 9 years old, I remember we were playing a tournament in Florida and someone was selling fake full kits. And I got David Beckham had just joined Real Madrid, with that stupid samurai haircut that he had. And,
what a time.
What a time. Beckham, 23 on the back in my full kit.
It's like 04, 05?
This is 03, I
03,
think.
03.
I might be mistaken, but I think I was 9. And that like is just burnt in my memory, just thinking he was the coolest guy. Going to Real Madrid was the coolest thing. And I just wanted to be like him. Later on, it became Stevie G. I always wanted to, I don't know, there was something about like the box-to-box midfielder. He just had a certain swagger to the way he hit a football that, it was very aesthetic. I could speak for hours about him and Bex. But
what position did you play?
I played all over the pitch. I was a center midfielder for the longest time. Then I became a left midfielder with a right foot. I was groundbreaking, cutting edge at the time. I invented the cut in.
Wow.
I'm joking. And then I got really tall. I grew 30 centimeters in a calendar year.
Wow.
And and my coaches moved me into defense.
Defense,
I think
okay.
They were like, oh, then I invented the ball playing centre back. I just, I peaked before my time.
Okay. you know how like it's said that like if you skateboard, there's a certain way you see life and the way you think and operate. How does a center midfielder perceive life? A left winger perceive life? What's the thought process just like on a human level and a mentality level?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think,
Because I'm sure like sometimes you think as a center back, right? Today.
yeah, always. I mean, yeah, it's a fascinating way of putting it. When you're playing football, it's all about intuition, right? You don't have time to think, so your body's just doing what it's been doing in training. But I think if we add like the life analogy to it, a center midfielder, and we'll start with how I moved. Center midfielder always has to look over his shoulder. So you've got to know what's happening all around you. You're never truly safe. 'Cause someone's in your blind spot, whatever. And then you've also got to have vision. You make the game tick, il metronomo, Andrea Pirlo, also loved him, incredible player. So that is a really nice analogy that constantly got to be looking over your shoulder. You're never safe. Always got to be moving, making space. And you got to run a lot, hard work. Left mid is a lovely position because you've got the whole side of the field behind you, and all you really have to worry about is staying on side. You don't have to defend very much. It's a very attacking role. It's showcase. You're loving life, champagne football. Centre back is like resolute, strong leadership, talking. Really nice because you can see the whole field, and occasionally you have to run really fast backwards. So there's something about like dictating play with your mouth, being vocal, being a leader, and all of those things are like really nice experience as a footballer. And yeah, I'm sure there's some parallels that you can draw with life to certain positions, and I think I've probably been all of them up to this point.
For sure. No, I hear that, my brother. How did your parents' profession inform what you've become?
That's a good question. I probably in every way possible. So my dad was an artist, and then he became an art educator. So he was a sculptor, and then started working at the University of Pretoria. Pretoria Technikon, sorry. And then he moved to Wits Technikon before it became UJ. And he started multimedia, which is basically, he was just really interested about how art could be made on computers when they started becoming quite popular, the early Macs. And yeah, so he was a very creative, very interesting man who was looking at digital art, which is quite cutting edge. And my mom was an interior designer, and she was constantly, she was doing work for a big South African bank for most of her life, and but also constantly changing our house, the interior of our house, and updating it. And what they were amazing at is they not much went to waste in terms of furniture. Things were always fixed, and also they'd find really amazing thrift deals and then paint them, and they'd look incredible. And so we had these wild things that either my dad had made that were this mixture between furniture and sculpture. They still have today. These things are timeless. They're pieces of design, art. And then, the way my mom structured everything in the house meant that I grew up in an incredibly aesthetic and wonderful space where design was prioritized, but it was also just omnipresent. It was there around me all the time. So it definitely informed me becoming a designer. I also feel when your parents are both anesthesiologists, you become an anesthesiologist. My parents are both creatives. All three of my brothers became creatives. There's something kind of quite interesting about that, and it makes sense. Their upbringing helps guide you, unless you're like a real rebel but it would have been rebellious for me to be an accountant. They would have been like, what did we do wrong? What happened here?
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
And you first, second, last?
I'm the youngest.
The youngest.
Yeah.
How does it feel? How did it feel to, like, I guess, grow up with liberated views? Because I guess when your parents had you, they'd already figured it out.
Yeah, I mean, probably a mistake. Well, I was probably a mistake. It wasn't a mistake having me. But yeah, I think, my brothers had done the hard yards. And my parents were very, like, hands-off parents. They're quite chilled when it came to us growing up. And I think we rewarded them by being pretty on it. I don't know. I'd love to know what they did, but like all of us care deeply about work and being decent people. So, like, job well done, I think. I think being the youngest is really cool. You get older brothers who can guide you, and then at some point you realize, like, now you get to go off on your own journey, and you've been given such a cool head start. It's the same with football. Like, you get a really cool head start from your older brothers. And my brothers were great. They were creative and cool, and they wore skinny jeans before anyone was wearing skinny jeans. And then I thought, yeah, I've got to wear skinny jeans. And it was way too early, especially at like a private boys' school. Did not go down well, but you learn, like, okay, like I'm living with these guys who are 5 years older than me. What they're doing isn't gonna cut it with my friends my age.
Yeah.
I also, their friends were also wonderful people, and who made me, like, saw me, even though I was a lot younger than them. So it was great. Great being the youngest. I wouldn't say you get away with more. I think that's all personality based. But I think my brothers will be like, oh, you went to a nice school, whatever. I'm like, oh, okay. Fair. The youngest sometimes get some cool things.
Yeah. No, I hear that, brother. What was your first loophole into art? Did you first start drawing? Did you start making sculptures? Did you start doing graphics? Like, what was your first entry point?
Oh, geez. I was terrible at art growing up. My brothers were amazing. And I was like, cool, I'm the black sheep of the family. I'm the one who can't draw, doesn't have a creative bone in his body. And like how in school in grade 9, you've got to choose what you're going to do for your subjects. And I was not going to do art. And then I had this, like, feeling that I've got to do it, And I told my dad, I was like, Dad, I'm going to choose art as a subject. And he was like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, you don't have to, it's not going to change anything if you don't do it. And I did it. I took it. And so did quite a lot of other kids. And I was like, damn, this is maybe a mistake, but let's see. And it was like a switch went off in my head. Once I decided that I wanted to do it, I just became a lot more confident and quickly, like, became one of the best art students in my school. Won, like, the art prizes in matric, and I was like, cool, this is something I want to explore. And it was either going to be fine art or graphic design. And then, because my dad works at UJ, he was like, just come have a look at the Faculty of Art, Design and Architecture and see if anything piques your interest. And I was like, oh, architecture sounds great. And then there were like 8 years of studying. I was like, no, can't do that. That sounds terrible. And then I was introduced to industrial design. And industrial design is really interesting because it's quite hard to describe. It's the design of 3D objects at its core. So, like this water bottle has been industrial designed, this coaster's been industrial designed, table, industrial design, chair, any sort of object, TV, industrial designed. But at the same time, it's also, if you like peel back the layers, it's a way of problem solving. It's a way of learning a process to tackle any design issue. And then you can take it into broader issues, like things like, can we solve water supply with design? Can we, like, look at single-use plastics. And so learned these incredible skill sets. And I didn't start studying it because of that. I started studying because there was some kid who drew the most amazing wolf I've ever seen on the wall. And I was like, if you can do that, I want to do that, you know, and if this is where you're doing that sort of thing. And it was fascinating. I learned how to woodwork. I learned how to do ceramics. I learned how to laser cut. They teach you almost every single process that's available to manufacture in South Africa. And then you sort of finish. I did my honors. I did a bit more research. You finish this and you go, cool, what do I want to design now? And you get to decide. It's quite hard finding a job because there are not many like avenues to explore. You can like do point of sale or, you know, lots of marketing based industrial design, or you can go into furniture. But I sort of decided that I wanted to do my own thing and started making my own products. I wanted to start a brand. I was very inspired by guys like Dr. and Mrs. And Tonic, amazing furniture designers. And I was like, oh, let's see if I can start my own brand. That then led to a very long road of discovery, which I'm still on. But I think the main core thing about it was that I studied a degree that I didn't know about until like I decided basically that I wanted to do it. And the degree was all about like teaching you a lot of different skill sets so that you can make your decision about what you want to do, which is a huge part of who I am at the moment and what my design practice is about learning new things and experimenting and failing lots and just being like really open to, like trying something out that you don't know everything about. It's quite scary, but I think that's I've already done one scary thing, and you know, I just keep doing scary things, and they're not so scary anymore.
Yeah. That's beautiful, man. I'm so interested. I mean, we all know your work is centered around sustainability, recycling, upcycling. But before we dissect all of that, how does coming from a city like Johannesburg influence your design palette?
That's a great question. Joburg is like one of the most influential parts of my life. It is a rough city. We all know this. It is like in some moments the most beautiful place, in some moments incredibly ugly. Some moments it's, you know, really fun. Other moments it's scary and hard. But there is a concurrent theme that I find in Joburg, and it was my old lecturer, Angus Campbell, who's based in New Zealand at the moment. And he taught us about this theory called design by the 99% or something along those lines. And it was talking about this idea of design for the 1%, which is like, oh, you know, super yachts and, you know, the 1% earners have all these amazing things and all this money goes into these designs. But we look at like the rest of the population that aren't high earners, what are they designing to better their lives? I've probably butchered that title, but it's something like that, designed by the other 90% or other 1%, whatever it is. But the theory is like Joburgers are designing all the time. And if you open your eyes, you can see it. And whether it's like putting a cinder block up, which becomes a chair, now you've made a chair design. We're thinking like in a way that's like using what's around us, doing that thing. And I think we've got a lot to talk about with regards to this. But that theory of like, Maak a plan, make do, take what I've got and solve my current issue, like that's what Johannesburg does really well. From like illegal electricity connections, don't do that, to like making a chair out of a cinder block or repairing stuff. That's something that like Joburg makes me so proud of is our economy of repair. I did my honors thesis on the repair of shoes in Joburg, and I found it just fascinating. I still find it fascinating that each community in Joburg has like a shoe repairer that sits on the corner that is like open every day, that you can take your shoes to and keep them going. You know, that is sustainable. That's sustainability in its like its purest essence, in my opinion, in the developing world, whatever we have to call it now. Where we create these communities that access informal systems that are repairing our objects to keep them, so we don't have to buy new things, and those new things take, you know, precious resources. So Joburg is a city that is like, yeah, in its own weird and wonderful way, quite sustainable, and there are insights in the city that like we can use and we can look at and say, yes, like this is a way of creating a more sustainable future globally. And that inspired me so much. I really loved it. And the reason that happened is because I was living here, because I'd spent time here, because I'd play football in Soweto and other places around Joburg, and, you know, wasn't just in my little bubble, which I think a lot of people can be in Joburg. It's like, it's really important to get out. And also amazing about having a studio at Vic Yards, and like accessing just different communities and seeing how other people are doing things and the innovation that's happening there. Whether it's like kitchen innovation, stuff that people are doing at home, or it's like slightly more scientific. You know, those two things are both happening in, you know, lots of parts of Joburg, and it's fascinating to see.
That's beautiful, man. I've always wondered. I'm actually like, this is the first time I've ever asked this question, but I really want to hear your take on it because it's something that I think about often, right? We're one of the few only countries in the world that has legislation to give free housing to people, and we have this like design idea, which is called an RDP. In your views, how could we take an idea like that and really like make it, I guess, a good medium of design? I don't know. Just always wondered, like, what would that world look like if we thought about it more and not execute in a manner that saves money so the people in power can pocket, but like execute in a manner that's good for the people that it's meant for, and also just, I guess, put the RDP idea in a good design conversation, because I think there's a world in which an RDP can be viewed as, I would hope in the future, as, wow, that's an example of good design.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating concept. It's not really my wheelhouse, I'll be honest.
No, for sure. Just wanted to hear your take.
Sure. I mean, I'm sure there's some very clever architects who could answer this question better than me. But I mean, is the RDP house poorly designed? Probably. I think that maybe let me focus on something that I know well, which is materiality. Why would we use something like cinder block or brick to make a house? Okay, because it's pretty stable. There's some really good positives to doing that. One would think that if you did it like that, we'd have been able to make far more RDP houses, because those materials, those building materials, are accessible. So why is like RDP, the rollout, so slow? Why are people still waiting? It's heartbreaking. So you've chosen a material that from a time point of view would be efficient, but we're not building efficiently. So I think if we had to relook at it from a materiality or a more sustainable point of view, like, if it's going to take this long, could we not have been, more sustainable with the material production in this, using like natural fibers in the concrete or something like that? There's also a whole bunch of information that, would entirely be overlooked, which is like indigenous knowledge systems. It's like homes have been built in this in these spaces throughout the country, various different ecologies and environments for a very long time. Yes, maybe there were more nomadic homes, but could we not have looked at history and how homes were built in sub-Saharan Africa previously, and taken, tips on how to, naturally air condition a place using, various materials. So there's so many things that design can like add in a process like this, and it just kind of feels like, the RDP system was quite lazy and just said we need to build as many houses as possible, and we're going to use as simple a design as possible and produce them as quickly as possible. But they've failed almost on all 3 points. Then why not just like go really hard into it if you're going to take that time and use sustainable building materials and indigenous knowledge systems to buy houses that are like, carbon neutral and also are not like shit to live in. That's it. I mean, it's crazy to me that like I understand the necessity of it and how important it is to give housing, but like, what does it do to someone when each house looks exactly the same? And then like you look across where RDP houses are built, like, is there individuality in that? And, should the person who's getting the house have like some sort of say in, like the color of the house, or maybe just the material that's going on the roof? I don't know, some sort of like co-design or co-creation, just to make that feeling of like ownership, like this is my house. But we can't get the rollout right, so there's no way that we can start co-creating the houses. But if we're looking at an ideal world, like those are things that are important to people, like feeling like they own the space, and it's not just like this cookie cutter thing that everyone else has got. So that would be my input, right or wrong, I don't know. But I think, it's, at the end of the day, like it's better than nothing, but like it could be so much better than that. Yeah.
No, I hear you, man. I've always like really like was moved by like the products that you've made over the years, and one of the most like, I guess, memorable and captivating like products that you've designed was using detergent bottles as like your resource to make these like beautiful rings. And I think I seen the article on Bubblegum Club at the time during the rollout, and a ring is obviously an accessory. And I remember everybody wearing these rings. Okay, maybe not everyone. I've seen like one or two friends, and I was like, "Where'd you get this ring? Where did you get this ring?" And then I was like, "It's sold out. It was like only limited things made." But like, how does Matthew construct like a ring from detergent bottles? Like, take me through that process.
Yeah. I think it starts with not really knowing what to do or how to do much. And then having like, I guess, like some part of my personality that wants to explore where my interests are peaked. So I came across Dave Huckins originally in university, and he'd done this thing called phone blocks, which was this phone where you could like unscrew a few screws and then you could replace a small camera for a big camera. And it was this modular system of design that was like blew my mind. I was like, this is going to change everything. And then this crazy amazing guy, Dave Huckins, same guy, goes and starts this thing called Precious Plastics, where he's like frustrated with plastic recycling, and he looks at it and says, how can I get some engineers together and design a system that's completely open source where people can start recycling plastic? Like, I think this is HDPE or PET. How can they do it within their own spaces or their own homes, to start businesses using plastic as a sort of feed source, material feed. And I just became fascinated by it. I was like, I have to explore this. I have to try it out. And it was very silly because melting plastic without precaution is dangerous. You release fumes. that aren't good for the body. So I, after my first 2 attempts, did some research into, you use your nose and you're like, that doesn't smell very good. I shouldn't do that. Lesson learned. I won't do that again, but I need to find a way to do this in a safer way. So you start doing research, and that just took me down this road of like, wow, the possibilities here are crazy. And I so badly wanted to build one of his machines where I could have made loads of whatever I wanted to make. So he creates these open source systems, but they're quite complicated. You've got to be, you've got to be a bit of an engineer. Lots of welding and metal cutting, and then there's motors that are involved. And I was like, this is just way too crazy. So I did that, and I came up with a solution to do it, but without the need to like build a machine to do it. So I like, a couple of people doing it on YouTube and finding like safe ways to do it, where if you melt plastic to a specific melting point, it doesn't really release fumes, it doesn't burn, and you get it to, it's called the glass point, where it becomes a bit glassy, and then you can remold it. But then, bought myself a little extractor fan, with, carbon filters to filter out the air. And yeah, I just started testing with it. The reason, it's hilarious, like, limited edition, but I just kind of got tired of making them. I think a big part of my design practice is like experimenting and taking something to a point, and, like maybe creating a bit of hype around it, and like, yeah, I've done this thing. And then I'm like, cool, I don't need to do that anymore. Whether it's a good business decision or not, I don't really care. Like, I'm more interested in exploring, experimenting, prototyping, and then parking it. It's in the archive. So that was one of those processes, and it allowed me to like really get to know a material that we urgently need to solve as humans. Like, plastic is an incredible material. It can do this, but it is also single use. And so we've invented like one of the most incredible materials ever, and it existing benefits the petrochemical industry. They make far more money with their waste material than they would have if plastic didn't exist. And yeah, we've stuck with this conundrum, and I firmly believe that like we all have to try and answer these questions as individuals who live on Earth. Like, if you use plastic, are you thinking about like ways of solving plastic, or are you just letting somebody else deal with it? Because like, kind of like our responsibility in a sense. So that was kind of how I felt. And then, there's also like this idea, I think when I was younger, of like being a name designer. I always wanted to be that, and that was that felt important to me. Now, not so much. Still, it's nice to be mentioned and that sort of thing. But I think what you realize when you work in the sustainability space is the idea that like, you kind of need to go a bit nameless. It's not about getting famous or doing good stuff. You're sort of just like adding to the problem then. So yes, I'm currently still battling with that a bit. But it was cool. Plastic was like was one of my entry points into sustainability, on like a conceptual level, but then also experimental, prototype level, product level. And yeah, I feel like I gave it a good bash.
You did. You did, because that plastic experimentation or exploration led to so many different other things, where you continued to make accessories, but like in glass. And we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that. Another thing that you were like, I guess, in my eyes, famously known for was this idea of taking shoes and like hand sewing moss on it. And I thought that was like so incredible. And I think at the time you like made like a Air Force One, or was it? Yes, it was an Air Force One. dude, like where does that, like, again, like taste palette like come from? Yes, the conversation is uh sustainability, but like surely there is an influence, innately. I know you. Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't really reflect on where the ideas or the inspiration comes from. I've been reading that Rick Rubin book recently, and talks about like just listening to your environment and having like your um like a perception of what's going on around you as an artist or as a creative person. And how these projects come about, or these prototypes, these designs come about, for me at the time, it was just like listening and then like finding what was around me to execute an idea in a physical space. Because an idea as a creative person is just an idea, and like you don't own an idea. You have to put it into the physical world for it to go up, not to be an idea anymore, and for it to become a real thing, a tangible thing. And so I was kind of obsessed with that, about bringing an idea to the fore, and then also like starting conversations. I loved that shoe gave so many people the ick. It was hilarious. Like, I think one of those, like, it was Yo Mzansi or someone shared it. People were just like, gross, this looks so uncomfortable. What is the point of this? Just like, killing me in the comments. And I was just laughing because it was like people engaging with something uncomfortable, which is, in my eyes, like, what if our shoes were growing? Like, what if the thing that we were wearing had to be looked after as if it was like this organic material that required you to like cut it and water it. And it's like wild, because I'm like, damn, that's such a cool concept. And I was so young when I thought about it. And now
Exactly.
now my concepts are whack. And it's something that it's like cool. But what I was doing is I was like listening at the time, and what I was really interested in was footwear, and I was really interested in sustainability. And then like, it's so bizarre, but like, because my mom's an interior designer, she had just like these moss samples that are like dormant reindeer moss. And I was like, those are cool, can I see them? And then I was like, oh my gosh, could you imagine if these were on a shoe? And so it's kind of, I don't want to call it like luck, because you have to be in the right place and then sort of make the decision to do that. And then you've got to work out how to sew it on and make it look good, and then you've got to document it. And there are all these processes that come beyond that, which require decision making and intuition. But yeah, it's like, how did it come about? I was listening and observing, and that was a weird project, and it launched my career for some reason. Yeah.
Wow, amazing, man. I've always wondered if there's like a world in which like you are an educated designer that has undergone the tertiary route, but even despite like having an honors degree, there were so many things that were self-taught. Is there a world in which where the shoemaker that you speak of, that resides in so many corners of our communities, can sort of like cross paths with you in a way that like, because I mean that individual might not necessarily understand the concept of sustainability, but the act of what they do is so sustainable. I'm wondering, like, what does that world look like in where I guess the self-taught and the educated meet in order to increase the conversation of sustainability?
Yeah. Well, just to touch on what you said earlier, like the tertiary education in design is one thing, but then doing what you want to do requires something else, So I think that was, for me, the realization was that I had to create my own projects. I had to like self-propel a lot of things. And I could do that because I was able to live with my parents for a bit longer than I think a lot of other people are. So in that respect, very privileged to do that. But I mean, when I was working in advertising, all I was thinking about were my self-propelled projects. So I think it's like about finding time to do the work at the beginning that helps you get to the point that you want to be later on, even if you have to do other work while that's happening. But like, no one's going to give you the brief. Like, you have to have the intuition to come up with the brief yourself and to listen to what's going on around you and what's needed and what's going to like make some noise that, you know, people are going to look and be like, whoa, that's cool. Yeah, there's no real like roadmap for it. It is like what you're interested in needs to be explored. And yeah, if you put like enough time into self teaching, you know, in that space, something's going to happen. Yeah, also like just like multiple skill sets, especially as a designer, like going as hard as you can into things that interest you. I'm not a graphic designer. I do a lot of graphic design work. I love it. I think it's like one of the best things to design digitally and for to live in a digital space. Like it blows my mind, you know, it's so cool. So I do that so I can, you know, support my other ventures, and you start to like become really good at things when you put time into them and like back yourself and start getting clients, you know. And so I'm just, you know, I'm not a graphic designer. No, it's cool. I like what you do. Sweet. In terms of your second part of that, which was like the self-taught versus the tertiary education with regards to the cobblers. I mean, I learned more from the shoe cobblers than they learned from me. I wasn't going there to teach them anything, and that's probably why I was going there with open eyes. And what I wanted to learn was like, how do you repair a shoe, and how can we co-design making your life easier? So when someone brings a shoe to them, there's like already places where they can easily access repair. So instead of, you know, okay, I've got to repair 10 different shoes in a day, it's like, well, this sole is like designed to be repaired after it, you know, comes apart. So I've got these areas where I can, you know, repair, and then I can do like an aesthetic repair. I can spend a bit more time, you know, making the shoe look really sick with the repair. That was kind of what we were doing, and I was learning so much from them because these cobblers have the hard skills, and I was researching how we can, you know, make shoe repair better for them. So bridging that gap, I mean, it's like I'm like, we don't need to teach people that are doing the thing anything. They know what they're doing. Like, we as designers and especially in the education space need to take stock of what's going on in like in Joburg, like these street cobblers, and say like, how can we, number one, make their lives easier, or how do we, you know, produce more income for them? So one of the ways would be like, and this is something I've been wanting to do. So if you do this, I know you were watching, and yeah, you know, but creating like an app where you create a map of all like informal shoe repairers around Joburg, and that could be for bags or whatever. And then, you know, if someone needs something repaired, they can find the closest shoe repairer, and that generates leads for this person who's then, you know, repairing shoes, and hopefully more income and more work. And so it's like, how can we benefit these people and like not necessarily teach them anything? I don't think, unless you're like a really brilliant like leather worker who's been working on shoes in Italy, they've maybe got something to teach
for sure.
Shoe cobbler, but I have nothing to teach any of these guys. They're all far better repairers than I am.
Yeah. No, shout out to all the street cobblers, man. And the way the stores are set up is so aesthetic. The paintings, the drawings. You'd recognize one immediately when you see it, and you'd recognize one from Joburg immediately when you see it. And it's so native to who we are and like the culture we possess. You speak about listening and trusting intuition a lot. I can imagine when you working with a product like glass. I listened to you speak about your process with the Heineken project in detail at Decorex Johannesburg, and I just want, I guess, the audience to also just like hear a piece of what that process was like. But I'm interested in like, you speak about listening and intuition a lot. Like, what's your relationship like with frustration when things are not going the way you anticipated to go? Because you live in this world of constantly playing and experimenting, specifically related to a material like glass that is so fragile in its essence, you know, and are so meticulous. Because I understand you work with people who like whose profession is just focused around glass, and the process of burning it is so particular and meticulous. What was your relationship like with frustration, like that world? I'm interested to hear like what your vibe is there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great lead on from the last question, because I think when I started doing this work, I was of the opinion that, you know, I could do it all. You know, I was going to start the studio, and I was eventually going to find the material and, you know, get the machinery, and that was going to be my output. But I needed to explore all of these things first. And I've come to realize that, like, I don't need to do it all. There are people that are doing it, but in a focused way. So someone's doing plastic, someone's doing wood recycling, someone's doing cardboard here, someone's doing electronics. And there are many people in these sectors working with the material. So my first interaction with frustration was, I don't need to do this all myself, and I can bring in other people. And I've slowly become more like a conduit between the brand that wants to do something cool and the person who can actualize that. But I am like the vital design step. I decide, I help you see what's possible on the brand side, and I help the manufacturer take it to a place that, you know, that aligns with like a cool new vision of that material and story. The storytelling is a huge part of it. So with Heineken, we did Waste to Wear, which is such a cool project. Shout out Deji Dada, shout out Sonic State. Yeah, really, really enjoyed that project. Shout out Heineken. But basically, it was an open brief. It was, what can you do with our waste material? And I'd never worked in glass before, but I was like, but that's the obvious thing we need to do here. What can we do? And then it was, all right, well, I don't really know any glass makers, so let's reach out to the one that we have heard of, which is Ingwenya Glass. Shout out Ingwenya Glass, they're awesome. And that started like us, you know, trying to get Ingwenya Glass on our side and be like, this is worth your while because you're very busy, but like we think this will be cool. And speaking through what's possible, you know, they're very much in like that we can do tableware. We've done a couple like outrageous projects, but that requires you to kind of be here. And can you do rings? Can you do medallions? We think we can, but we'll have to work it out. And so that started that process. To be honest, I didn't really feel much frustration with glass. It was because I was leaning on the expertise of people that have spent so much time doing it. That process for me was full of awe. It was just like learning about a material and watching it come to life, and like, oh, imagine a glass ring made from a Heineken beer bottle. Sweet, that's the idea. That's what I'm here for, and Deji's there for. But how do we turn that into something real, something tangible, something that, you know, we can make thousands of? I'm going to pass that on to somebody else, you know, and they're going to take 20, 30, 40 years of experience and problem solve. And I'll be there to give them dimensions and, you know, help them through the idea and make sure that the finish is right and we get it a bit rounder because it's feeling it's not feeling like as impactful as it can, and co-create it with them in the space. But yeah, I think the frustration left because I didn't feel like I needed to solve every problem. There obviously are examples where I've been very frustrated with materials, but I think it's part and parcel of what I do. It's like when you experiment with materials, you're bound to fail, so you understand that it's not going to work the majority of the time, and you might get lucky and it works, and then are you ready to park it? Or are you ready to explore the idea further and bring on more frustration? Dealing with frustration is difficult as a designer. I like to distract myself sometimes, which is not good. Oftentimes, I mean, there's a saying that like the answer is in the work, and that's the only way you're going to get through it. The frustration comes from not progressing. Like putting it to the side is not going to solve it. You can do easier things, and you can have your sort of head turned by smaller projects that have less unknowns and less frustration. But I find that if you put your head down and you get into the work and you sort of meet it halfway, the answer comes to you and you generally solve it. Yeah, there's also there's a like is it the Neistat brother, not Casey, but his brother. No, also Casey says it. Or was it Tom Sachs? One of those crazy New Yorkers. They speak about like this stuff a lot. The working and the spirited man and what it means to do good work. And they say like the reward for good work is more work. And the way to get through frustration in your work is by doing the work. And so that's generally how I do things. It sounds a little sad because it's working all the time, but I think it's like it's about not letting the frustration like scare you off, not letting the failure push you away from the idea.
Sure.
And just like trying. There's also intuition in knowing when to stop, and to park it for a while and to come back. And I've done that more times than anyone knows, because you've never seen the stuff that I've parked. It doesn't make the light of day. And there's so many projects like that. It's part and parcel of being a designer in like a slightly experimental field. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
No, it does. Yesterday you came from Cape Town, doing a project with the VNA, of which is your third year doing it. The first year you were like, second year it was like, okay, you're actually part of it, but like I feel like it's much more cemented now. I guess in a way that you started with the project working on it since May, and you've said to me off camera, this is like the year you've proved to yourself that you can actually do a lot of work all at once. What was that like process like, being in the VNA, having to set up at night? Because I mean, it's more during the day. And
So I mean, this VNA project, it's called Joy from Africa, and it started by the VNA marketing team and Platform Creative Studio based in Cape Town. And my role is purely a technical designer. So I come on board around May, and I help the client see the vision by creating, a three-dimensional model of what these big installations are going to look like. And these installations are for the end of the year festive season, and they're big. They're 12 meters long by 6 meters,
hanging from the roof.
Hanging from the roof, and they've got some of them have 120 plus parts in them, and a lot of them are made with crafters. So the idea was not to sort of move away from the Western aesthetic of Christmas and to move into what does like a South African Christmas look like. It's summer here. Why would we like show snow? makes total sense to me. But then also to celebrate craft and handwork and the amazing things that we're able to produce in South Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, with, you know, people that are here. And like, so can craft inform the aesthetic? Can craft, you know, change what Christmas looks like here? And a lot of this, you know, big shout out to Kathy O'Cleary. A lot of this is, you know, her and the Waterfront's sort of brainchild, and engaging with craft on like a high design level. So what I do is I come in and I take these ideas and I put them into these big installations. I help a bit like conceptually and creatively, but mostly it's, you know, visualizing it and then technically designing it. How's it all going to work together? And then I work with this amazing team of installers and producers, center design, and Brendan and all the guys. They're fantastic, and they bring it to life physically. So again, I'm becoming this middleman. I'm becoming the center mid, you know, looking behind me. I'm always, you know, watching. I'm playing the long balls. I'm receiving on the chest.
Exactly, right? Yeah.
So I'm going back to the central midfielder. But it's really like propelled me into a new space in design where I'm collaborating on a level I've never collaborated before. I'm working on a scale that I've never worked before, and it's like really forced me to up my game and to, you know, we start work in May and we finish in November, and you always think that that's going to be enough time, but it is never enough time, and it is so hard to do these big projects, but they're so rewarding because, I mean, like I just walk around the V&A when everyone's like avoiding it because it's so busy, and I just look at like a couple people taking photographs or exclaiming that what they're seeing like brings them joy, and that's like just so worth it. So it's been really, really cool to work on those projects. It is inherently collaborative. It's often hard to explain to people like what my role is, because there's so many people that touch that project, and like, but it's made me realize that like if you want to do something on that scale, you need a huge team to make it possible on that level. So like from like Nikki, our project manager, to Kathy, and then the V&A team, and then the team that builds, and then these guys that like rope access guys that go up into the ceiling like late at night and, you know, are installing all these installations. It's like amazing to watch and be a part of. And if you asked me if I was like gonna do this a couple of years ago, I would be like, what is that?
Wow.
So it's been quite a cool space to explore. It's made me a bit more quiet on Instagram because I'm
Busy.
I'm grafting behind the computer and not like doing these really fun, interesting experimental projects, but, you know, rather taking the ideas of industrial design and pairing it with craft, and taking the ideas of sustainability and how can we reuse your existing installations. And then we did this, like we used recycled plastic fish, which is really cool. So it's like
Center midfield.
Yeah, exactly. Distribution. So yeah, it's a really cool project. Very stoked to be involved with it. Also, just like I'm not used to working on projects for so long, so I've had to learn a level of like endurance that I'm not used to. As I think I mentioned earlier, like I'll do something and then I'll park, put in the archive, and move on. This really you got to see it out, you know. So that's been fascinating and really fun. And I think, you know, it's cool to like design for celebration sometimes. We can design seriously with like ideas of sustainability and making the planet better, and you know, selling products or whatever, but just to design to make people feel cool. And I know that, like, you know, it's part of the shopping mall, and it has its role, but just for for me, it's about designing for joy, which
No,
is
absolutely.
quite cool. to
Yeah.
do.
And you are a joyous guy. For those who don't know, he's also the head boy of Father Coffee.
That's
On a Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. First Sundays. We're gonna get to that dissection. But I really think that like visibility is such an important thing for any creator or maker of things. And visibility can mean so many different things, but I specifically want to associate it with collaboration. Your long-term collaborator, publicly, as we know, has been Adidas, and you guys have done so many different cool projects together. Where you came in as a mentor, talking to individual who has interest in design. Where you, I guess, reconstructing and making your own version of what a Stan Smith is, etc., etc. But what does that relationship look like for a designer, and what does it mean? What are the sort of like how do I phrase this? How do you benefit as a creator, visibility wise and collaboration wise, with like a big conglomerate like Adidas?
Oh, it's insane. What happens when you work with a brand? Everyone thinks I'm now a footwear designer for Adidas, so
Wow.
it's quite hard to like explain that I, I don't work with the brand. I'm a guest collaborator.
Dude, it's so funny. My girlfriend this morning, she was like, "Hey, Match is the guy who designed that white pair of Sambas that you enjoy wearing with the leather lace." I'm like, it's like so crazy. It's like, yeah. Everyone think you that now.
I struggle with it actually because I'm like, that is my dream. To be a footwear designer for Adidas or Nike or whoever.
You well in your way.
I think it's somewhere up on like my 10-year goals from a while back, is like, footwear designer for insert big brand. It's hard to explain it to people, like, and I sometimes just don't go into it. That the relationship, just because I'm like, not really harming anyone if you think I designed these fine. Not like I'm taking credit for them. I'm a guest collaborator, and I didn't actually design them. And I do these like interesting, weird, like marketing angled pieces with the brand to get you to think about things. And it's just amazing. I think Xavier Kunene, shout out to him. He saw what I was doing from a mile away. I think he saw the Moss shoe and was just like, all right, we need to do something with him. And I think it took a lot of work from him to get me over the finish line with like the internal Adidas team. And I'll always be grateful for that, because what I do is inherently a bit weird. And I think at first people are like, what is going on here? But when it's broken down and you see it, it kind of makes sense. So yeah, I think there's like the collaboration with a brand like that, even though it's not really a collaboration in my eyes. Like, we've got people that have actually collaborated with Adidas, like Tebo Magugu. We've got people who've collaborated with Nike, like Purple Poppy. When LeBron James is wearing your shoes before a basketball game, like, that's a collaboration, and I'm not on that level. So please stop confusing me, guys. But my collaboration is more, I think, conceptual, and I think it fits into a different space. It's not in the design space, but I think it's in connection, it's in mentoring, it's in the ideas space. And the whole reason I do it is because I want to promote an idea of sustainability that is inherently South African. And I think it's something that like the brand appreciates, is like, what does the Joburg Stan Smith look like when it's ending plastic waste, So that was sort of how I saw it. And I like love working with the brand. Cool brand to work with. They're great. people love Adidas, and to be able to have worked with them has, given me some really cool conversations with people, given me some amazing visibility. And I'm always grateful for the people that saw what I was doing and said, hey, we should do something with this guy.
Shout out Addy.
Yeah, shout out Addy.
Shout
out Ashley Ben as
Shout
well.
out Ashley Ben from
Yo.
Room Studios. No words can ever.
Huge influence.
Wow.
Yeah, really put me on as well, and kept the relationship going. I think that was a huge part of it. It was like, we don't just want to do one thing with you. We want to keep things going so that, we can create like a relationship with local designers, and not just, do one thing and then throw it away after the concept's done,
Yeah, no, human beings like Ashley are so important. Those are the people that we should really like put in power, because they understand the importance of not doing one thing and continuing the story. So shout out Ashley, shout out Room, shout out Addy, shout out Matt. We laughed earlier about like you being the head boy of Father Coffee. And it's not necessarily a joke, Some of the best parties I've ever been to is because of this guy, Unfortunately, missed his 30th because I was in Cape Town. And you do a lot of work with Father, which is like this like really beautiful idea that resides in Joburg. They make a really beautiful coffee. And I think it's a institution or anchor point for, I guess, like day-to-day work for people, and also like a very beautiful wine bar. It is so many different things, but I'm interested in to know like, how did that relationship start, and like how does a Father Coffee, I guess, like makes you also tap in with a Johannesburg pulse, because you like when I speak of people that come through the institution of Father Coffee, it's like creatives or forward thinkers, whether it is the parties, whether it is the I'm working at a cafe, can you take us through that whole world?
Yeah, I mean, anyone who visited the Father in Braam just to sit on the bench outside and get some snaps, like early Instagram days when they still had the old like logo.
Yes.
Yeah. That was, I mean, Father is an institution. They are the best coffee in the country, in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, I've always loved the brand. There's some hilarious photos with me and Chad from like 7 years ago during a cupping when we didn't know each other, that we look at now quite hilariously at. But yeah, I do a lot of the graphic design work for them. My partner Annabelle also works at Father.
Shout out Anna.
Shout out Annabelle. Yeah, we like, I think with their space in Kramerville, they wanted to, and this is all sort of their brainchild, but they wanted to activate like a space to have a bit of a party on a Sunday. And the space just sort of comes alive. During the day, it's incredible. It's like this mid-century modern raw wood, very light feeling. It's a great place to taste stuff. That's what I've always said. Like when a space is very neutral and clean and there's volume to the ceiling, like the coffee tastes just a little bit better because you're not distracted by like, I don't know, the smell of mahogany or something. It's just like the perfect place to taste. And it makes sense that you're doing wine and coffee there. But sort of space just comes alive when you put a DJ in there, and it's become a really cool like place for us to throw a party every now and then. Volume, Saul Nossel throws a lot of the parties, the bride days there, and yeah, it's every first Sunday of the month. It's a bit of a turn up to get you going for the new week, and
a big turn up, not a bit of a turn up.
Yeah, but what better way to party than to drink like natural wine and like really good cocktails and have it with a braai?
Yeah.
So I think that's the other thing. It's like introducing people that wouldn't really know what natural wine is. That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
That you guys should listen to at some point. But like introducing a young audience to wine that's being made here that's really cool and interesting and is fun. And then, we kind of just enjoy playing music, and we've all become better DJs for these Fridays, and it's we've thrown some other parties there that are a bit more parties, which have also been cool.
Like a 30th.
Like a 30th. We've done a fundraiser there. We've, their end of year party, or their 10-year celebration at Father was huge. Yeah, we flew in a DJ called Daddy Warbucks, international DJ.
Wow.
Really, really cool dude. Check him out on SoundCloud.
Crazy. Matthew, bro, are you proud of yourself?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think I am. I definitely haven't nailed the list of goals that I set for myself when I was a young guy. I didn't become a pro footballer. I'm not yet the designer I wanted to be.
But you still think like a pro footballer.
Still, yeah.
In real life.
Still think like a pro footballer. I'm making videos for Adidas Predators.
Wow.
That's all I wanted to be as a pro footballer, So yeah, I am proud of myself. It's been quite a journey the last 10 years, I'd say, as a designer, and I didn't think I'd be in this exact position, but I'm proud of the work I do. I am, just think like growing up and realizing that, you have to work really hard to get where you want to be, is cool and all, but you also have to find balance. And I think I'm finding balance in my life. Moved into a new spot with my partner, and, that's making me very proud. And I've been able to do that as a designer. So yeah, proud of who I am. And excited for the next 10 years.
Thank you so much for coming to Maak bro.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed that.
Thank you, brother. I want to give you a hug now.
I'm in my zone. I'm in my zone. I'm in my, I'm in my